All right, this is the second video for 2.1, and we're moving on to this question. What motivated Atwood to write The Handmaid's Tale? She has talked about this a lot. She wrote the book in 1985, and she's still talking about it. This is from an interview in 2017 in response to the Hulu version of the book, which is a series that goes beyond what happens in the book and imagines what happened afterwards. And when she was interviewed in 2017 on camera here, she talked about three main inspirations or reasons why she wrote the book. So I wanted to share those with you. I think they're important for us to understand. The first is that she spent a lot of time studying 17th century American Puritan theocracy based in New England. She actually studied at Harvard and even learned that she had some genealogical ties to someone who was accused and convicted of being a witch in the 17th century. The woman was somehow escaped her hanging. But anyway, so she has all this sort of background knowledge and connection to it. And what she realized is that theocracy bubbles up in our society a lot, more often maybe than people think. We think about our, country being founded as a republic, right? But before that, it was a theocracy where church and state were one and the same. And so that is an important aspect of our culture, and it's one that she highlights in her book. She also really enjoyed reading dystopian novels, she said, and she noticed that they were all narrated by male voices. And so she wondered, can I write one of these? And if I can, what would it sound like if it were from the point of view of a woman? And so that inspired her to write the book. It also happened to be 1984 when she was writing it, and that is the name of one of probably the most important dystopian novels, the one by George Orwell. And so she was also kind of giving a shout out to George Orwell and his book 1984, and kind of writing a complimentary text, if you will, from a female point of view. She also noticed in the early 1980s that people were saying what they would do if they rose to power publicly, and she was keeping track of these statements. She would clip them from magazines and newspapers because she was really concerned with this faction and what they were saying they would do if they gained power. She notes also in this interview, like I said, it was from 2017, that this same faction is or was in power at this time. And so she thought that was concerning. All right, let's move on to the setting. The book takes place in Gilead, and Gilead is an imagined near future version of our country. In Gilead, a right-wing theocratic coup has taken place in northeastern U.S. in early 21st century. An autocratic elite, alarmed by a large decline in birth rates, mastermind the murder of the president and a massacre in Congress, then played on public fear, ignorance, and restricted access to information and money to suspend all civil rights. A frightened, confused citizenry has hunkered down to ride out the crisis, and most have submitted to the rapid imposition of many restrictions and a rigid codification of status and role in the new dystopian state of Gilead. So we are in New England. We don't hear the names of cities. We're probably in Boston or near it. though critics have determined based on hints that are dropped throughout the book. And this would have been familiar territory to Margaret Atwood, who studied at Harvard and so knew the area. All right, the next question about the book is about Offred and what her plight is. So what is her predicament that she finds herself in the beginning of the book? Well, first of all, it's important to understand that women have been stripped of jobs and financial independence and forced into one of 8 color-coded categories. I'm just going to introduce to you 4 of these categories because they are the most predominant in the first 7 chapters of the book. The first is wives of the elite men known as the commanders, who are running the government and who put in place this totalitarian government of Gilead. And the wives have certain roles in the society, so watch for that. Serena Joy is the wife that we are going to meet in the first 7 chapters, the wife that Offred lives with. We also will meet aunts. Aunts wear like a dark khaki color, and they are responsible for teaching the handmaids what their role is and really conditioning them to be successful in their role. We'll hear about Aunt Lydia in the first 7 chapters, who Offred was taught by in her time before being placed in a home. We'll also hear about Marthas, who wear a green color uniform. Marthas are the servants in Gilead, and 2 characters we meet, Cora and Rita, are both Marthas. So they are doing the cooking and cleaning and taking care of the people in a household, like the commander, the wife, and to a certain extent, the handmaid, like Offred. The last category are the handmaids. And so this is a picture from the Hulu version of the book. And here we have Offred and of Glenn. Here's a close-up of Offred. Offred is a handmaid, and the handmaids are really central to this society. They're virtually powerless, but they are the group at the center of the structure in Gilead. They are fertile women forcibly recruited to try to bear children for the older, all too often sterile commanders. All other positions, male and female in the society, revolve around the core mission of reproduction and the myriad aspects of repression considered necessary to enforce compliance and rebuild the population. So the narrator is a handmaid, and she had a life before being a handmaid. We'll hear about it as you read. She is currently in her 3rd home, her 3rd placement, and she has spent 5 weeks at this most recent placement. And so she narrates the book, and she's going to be telling us about her home, describing it to us. And then through various flashbacks, we'll hear about her life prior to Gilead. She is in this transition generation that remembers the world before Gilead, but is now living under the totalitarian government of Gilead. All right, I also do want to give you a trigger warning that you can see from understanding what a handmaid is, that there is going to be some strong content. The work contains themes of sexual violence, rape, forced pregnancy, and abuse. It also includes depictions of physical and psychological trauma. And I just want to remind you that Atwood is writing this book in response to things that she saw as being problems and as a way to expose some of the harmful, what she considered to be harmful actions people were taking and claims that they were making to go further with these actions. And so it's a worst case scenario of what would happen if women's reproductive rights were taken away. And so to expose that as a problem, she creates this book. All right, thanks for taking notes. And now you'll need to read the first 40 pages for the first discussion.